Hello everyone. How are we all doing? Cam Wilson here. Nice to see you all. TGIF. We made it. Hey, yeah boy. Yeah. First week back and made it to Friday. God. Who knew? Who thought we'd be here? I wasn't sure I'd make it. Actually, no, I was pretty confident. Things are good for me. How are you all? It's nice to be here with you on this most blessed day. Oh, Zales, you gave a sub to Leo. Oh, watch out. You might be accused of grooming, which I will get to a bit later. I can't believe that is happening. There is context to that, and I should probably just say, so it doesn't get clipped, I'm innocent of all charges. How are we all doing? Yeah, it has to do with defamation. So Clothes Villainy, Mark, says you've lit the basement very nicely. Actually, the window, the skylight that I have is you know, giving some nice light today. It feels good. I am, I've been doing well, except I'm a little bit frustrated at Donnie because he is in a chewing state of mind at the moment. And he chewed up my other set of glasses. So I'm down to one. And they were my nice set of glasses. They were the ones that I wore on TV. They're the ones that my wife said I look best in, which is very disappointing. So just stuck with these ones. But my week otherwise has been good. Don't you use that Donnie emote with me. TGIF, y'all. I will try keep this stream, I think a lighthearted one, right? As much as possible. Although we do got to talk about this week in politics. What a shitty week in politics. What a, like, gross, hateful... Oh my god, my microphone thing is stuffing up. Give me 1 second. Stand by. Things are not going well. Okay, we're good, I think. Pardon me, alright. Yes, it was a shitty week in politics, so I'll have to go through some of it. I will try, you know, we'll try to keep this light. We're going to enjoy this Friday vibes. Who haven't I said hello to? Hello, Oliver. Hello, Regina, my faithful lieutenant. Nice to have you here. Oh, thank you, Nanai for following. Nice to have you here as well. Sauce149. One of my must-watch people for what is going on in the Cucked Canberra convoy, like, you know, shenanigans. Very, very helpful. Hey, Blonde Matthew, what was it like discovering Swole Cam? Oh, well, hold that thought. Who have I missed? Hello, Moz6522. Hello, Leo. Hello, Upright Squire. Bio-Blooded. A few other people. Windy Penguin, hi. Alright, should we get into it? So, the first big thing that I've got to get onto today is that a friend of mine, Brad Esposito, sent me this morning and said, I found Swole Cam. Here we go.
All right, another day in the garage, Jim. It's leg day. You know what that means. We're skipping it. Doing bench press instead. Watch this 275.
When you find out how good love can be, you're so lost when...
What do we reckon? Is that my Swole doppelganger? Can you guys see it that well? Let me zoom in. I'll show it to you again. Let's do it without the sound. It actually does look a bit like the honey badger, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll show you again. I think kind of. I guess so. Curly hair, Same kind of face, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's that close, but everyone else is like, spooky. Yeah. It's good. Maybe I'll see if I can get him on the stream or call him up. Okay. Let us... Zales, you should grow the hair. Okay, I will. Hey, now that the wedding is done, I can do whatever I want to the hair now, and I will. Maybe I will grow. So, on Monday, I had a very, very important thesis that it had been just eating away at me, and it was: is Scott Morrison the most cucked Prime Minister ever? Is he the one who's been cuckolded the most? And I had some great feedback on it. I did have some people push back. They said, you know, Malcolm Turnbull, previous Prime Minister, you know, he was totally unable to really do anything as Prime Minister. He was forced to, or chose to, I should say, but guided by his party to push for things that he didn't want. Kind of said some stuff that people knew that he didn't necessarily, I guess, align with his previous beliefs or whatever. But I said Scott Morrison, the difference between Malcolm Turnbull and Scott Morrison is that Scott Morrison is absolutely cucked from every single angle. It's from his party room, the other premiers, you know, world leaders. He gets embarrassed by people, like, you know, the refusing the handshakes and other stuff like that. Everywhere he goes, people just like disrespect him, and somehow he just like, you know, he smiles through it, and good for him. But I wanted to just say that we got some further evidence this week suggesting that yes, maybe he is. So the first thing was that so the religious discrimination bill, when we talked on Monday, this was honestly a really shitty week. The way that it was initially promoted, the way that it would allow discrimination against LGBT kids, and then when the government first proposed an amendment that would help them, but would then allow trans kids to still be discriminated against. I mean, that was awful. That was really awful. But it ended up being that, you know, one of the few things that Scott Morrison seemingly actually believed about, you know, religion is one of the things that he, you know, really, you know, makes as part of his image. One of the things he really pushed for, well, it didn't go as they expected. So here's from earlier in the week. The coalition has shelved. I love that they will use shelved, by the way. Its divisive religious discrimination laws after amendments aimed at protecting LGBTQ+ students sparked a backlash from religious schools and conservatives. Facing calls from the Christian lobby to dump the amended laws, the government said it had received legal advice from the Attorney General's Department that showed Lower House amendment passed in the early hours may have unintended consequences. The advice allegedly related to proposed changes supported by Liberals MP Bridget Archer, Trent Zimmerman, Katie Allen, Fiona Martin, and Dave Sharma, who crossed the floor to vote with Labor and the crossbench MPs. This was something that was really unexpected, apparently, from the government. Apparently, they didn't think that 5 lower house members, so 5 House of Representative people, would go against it. It's like a huge revolt. Of course, the government is refusing to release the advice on the amendments, so they just say, just trust me, bro. Just trust me. Despite expectations the bill would be introduced into the Senate on Thursday, the government faced calls from the Australian Christian lobby to withdraw it. The lobby argued the SDA changes would remove protections for Christian schools. So, it was... At the end, it was kind of opposed by both sides. You know, you had the more moderate Liberals opposing it, and then you also had the hard right Christian lobby groups, and I think Erica Betts also spoke out about it. They faced the prospects of amendments passing the Senate after Liberal Senator Andrew Bagg put the government on notice blah, 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 blah. So essentially what we got was this, one of the few things that Scott Morrison really wanted to pass, one of the things that he promised. Oh, thank you, Cabbage Mo. That's very nice of you. So one of the few things that he promised to do, and you'll all recall that I've said, Scott Morrison really has not had that much. Like, he doesn't have that many ideas. He didn't really know what he wanted to do. He knew that he wanted to be Prime Minister. He knew that his side of politics, they wanted to win the election. But as for actually changing Australia, doing new things, didn't really have that many ideas. It wasn't like a John Howard and he wanted to, do IR reform or whatever. It wasn't like, Malcolm Turnbull who wanted to make everything innovative and agile. Or even, Tony Abbott who wanted to give a shitload of money to chaplains and that kind of stuff. Scott Morrison doesn't have that many ideas, but this was one of his few ones. He wasn't able to pass it. So that was an initial cucking. But then a PVO bomb, real friend of mine, PVO. Actually, by the way, people might remember that he blocked me because I tried to get him with a lick my balls joke. Weirdly, I actually noticed he unblocked me. But he dropped a PVO bomb earlier this week as well. And I'll show you what it was. Right here. Volume.
Peter Van Onselen. Another bombshell in Canberra. Our political editor, Peter Van Onselen, has exclusive details tonight on how Scott Morrison has been poleaxed by his own cabinet, which now seems to have lost confidence in his judgment.
Has anyone ever heard
and how the Prime Minister
before?
himself declared he was putting his leadership on the line, but still got rolled. This is hugely damaging after an already damaging 2 weeks of name-calling, backstabbing and witch hunts within the government. PVO joins me now live. Peter, one way or another, is this enough to spell the end of Scott Morrison?
I wouldn't necessarily go that far, Sandra, but I tell you what, it is incredibly damaging. I mean, we had his character before this being called into question by his own colleagues, calling him a liar, a fraud, a hypocrite, a horrible, horrible person, even a complete psycho. Now we know that the cabinet are questioning his political judgment, and that's the one big thing that he was regarded to really have a strong set of cards when it comes to. Take a look.
After a week from hell, things are only getting worse for Scott Morrison. On Monday, his own cabinet turned on him. One senior minister telling me things erupted. All over a sneaky deal the PM hatched, trying to get his religious freedom bill through the parliament. In exchange, he'd allowed debate on his now dead promise to set up a federal corruption watchdog, knowing full well it would go nowhere.
The Prime Minister tried to wedge Labor and ended up wedging himself.
This is a bill that I earnestly hoped would unite.
But we now know it's dividing his inner sanctum. Sydney MP Trent Zimmerman, for one, just can't stomach the religious freedom bill.
It's an opportunity that I can't let go past. I could not live with myself. I didn't seek to address those issues.
It's terrible.
He crossed the floor, and so did 4 other Liberals, voting with the crossbench and Labor on an amendment to protect transgender children. That sent the bill to the Senate. But instead of a showdown, it's all on ice, pending an inquiry.
The Prime Minister began Monday's cabinet meeting by declaring he was putting his leadership on the line. This is hugely important because he got rolled, even when he had so much at stake. His own cabinet colleagues didn't trust his political judgment.
Close Morrison confidant Stuart Robert argued for the PM in cabinet, but remained tight-lipped today.
Well, I guess I didn't see you in cabinet, PVO, and I did have a good look around the room.
I've clearly spoken to someone there, though. What does it mean that the Prime Minister got rolled in cabinet on that, if you like, political strategy?
Well, clearly I don't agree with you, and I was there, and you weren't.
Are you saying that didn't happen in cabinet?
I'm saying I don't discuss matters of cabinet confidentiality.
Communications Minister Paul Fletcher was one of those who argued forcefully against the Prime Minister. Another minister said in the meeting the Prime Minister's horse trading would cause more problems than it solves. One Liberal telling 10 News First, Scott Morrison was being too tricky by half. In the end, Cabinet rolled its Prime Minister, prompting one minister say the PM looks rattled. Not surprising given he'd put his leadership on the line, and not even his own Cabinet backed his political judgment.
That's probably enough from PVO. So, in summary, what we found out was this week when is Scott Morrison a horse girl? I don't know. Maybe he's just. I can see some of the similar like characteristics. Anyway, so this week he wanted to get religious discrimination bill, and PVO's sources say that in cabinet, he said, "Do you know what what we do is we will get, if you give me the votes for religious discrimination, or not if you give me the votes, but do you guys think that we should put the federal ICAC bill up as well as a way of like bringing in the people who are going to vote against the religious discrimination bill?" So the idea was that Bridget Archer, that Tasmanian MP who has been vocally against these religious discrimination amendments, that she will be brought to the table because we'll just discuss the federal ICAC. I think it's also been slightly like, there was an ABC report that I read that said, well, actually, it wasn't quite a rolling. It was just like a discussion of strategy, whatever. Like, it clearly was, he clearly wanted to do something and he didn't get his way. But actually, the bigger thing from this is that this is yet again another, like, really big leak from Scott Morrison's cabinet. Like, there is someone in the inner sanctum who is now trying to embarrass Scott Morrison. We're not that far until the election either. So this far out is hoping to cause political damage. I mean, look, we all know that Peter Van Onselen hates Scott Morrison. And so, his, get him poleaxed. And so we don't know who his sources are. Maybe it's Peter Dutton. Maybe it's someone we haven't even thought of in the cabinet. I can't even think of the most obscure people. But there'd be someone who you never thought of. Maybe it's them. But regardless, like, the knives are out. Like, this is not like a unified government. And for this to happen from his own team, the ones who are trying to get re-elected themselves, just more cuckage. More cuckolding for our most ever cuckolded PM, in my opinion. And sorry, I wanted to respond to something before. Mark, you said the religious discrimination bill was an election issue in 2019. I know that it may not have been, but he promised to introduce them in 2019, just after the election. So he really did try to do something about it. Oh, no. Thank you so much for subscribing. Appreciate it. So that is our Cucked PM. And of course, almost forgot about this. I don't think this is the cuckage. This is just a little preview of what 60 Minutes is showing on Sunday night. Look at Stefanovic's face.
I can't remember the words.
It's
there we go. Wow, bravo.
Maybe he's got it. Prime Grinch. I don't want to get DMCA'd. What do you think? How's his technique? Look at look at Jenny trying to fire up the kids as well. Oh boy, must watch television and can't wait to see it. It's really good when you as a journalist, you get limited access to the Prime Minister, the most powerful person in the country, and you hold him to account by giving him a ukulele so that he absolutely embarrasses himself. I'm really happy for that. Okay. That's enough on Scott Morrison. And I will note that other people thought this as well, that apparently this 60 Minutes interview on Sunday night is set to talk about Scott Morrison's Hawaii thing. And maybe what they're trying to do is, obviously it has Jenny and the family in as well. They're trying to reframe it as, this wasn't Scott Morrison, just absconding. This was him taking family time. Totally understandable. I mean, I think that will be their attempt to do, and so maybe that's why they're talking about it. That would be my guess. I just do think it's such a funny idea when we're now maximum 3 months until the election, and you're choosing to bring up an example, probably the most visceral example that people have of you failing as a prime minister, like pulling out the ukulele, the instrument of Hawaii. Just to remind everyone, just so you know, just in case anyone has actually forgotten, I was in Hawaii. Don't know if I mentioned that. Wouldn't be my advice, but hey, I'm not an advisor. They're the advisors. I'm just I'm the idiot journalist. Oliver asks, will I be watching? No, I will not. The best bits will probably come through Twitter, right? I don't think any swing voters care about Hawaii, and if they do, you don't want to mention it. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I disagree. I think, I think people like that thing on the Scott Morrison stuff. The Hawaii saga was one of the most damaging things that started up part of his poor reputation of him as someone who doesn't do the job. Like that's one of the things that Labor's attacking him with. So, to me, I think that it is a big thing that people remember, and that's one of the things that like people everywhere, like even people who aren't politically involved, that's the one that they actually really do remember. So, not entirely sure that I think that people don't remember it, but I do agree that they probably wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't bring it up if I was there. So the other thing that I thought was crazy this week was this like politicization of espionage. So earlier this week, the head of ASIO gave his annual threat assessment where he talks to politicians but also journalists and stuff as well, and says, here's what's going on, here's what we're worried about. And during it, he actually mentioned one specific threat, which is that there was an espionage attempt by who Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, called a puppet master who was trying to fund candidates to run in an election to win favor over them. Now, if I recall correctly, they were saying that people don't actually know, like they intercepted or stopped this attempt before it actually was underway. So there's no suggestion that anyone, that any current politician or current political candidate was actually involved in this. But, this stuff is very serious. Look, between you and me, it's kind of crazy that this is still happening in 2022. I mean, that's, I guess, very naive, but, the spy shit, it's crazy. But then during question time this week, so when all the politicians are performing and, they're trying out whatever their, political attacks are going to be, it's a bit of a testing ground. They hope TV picks it up and then uses it. They hope that the press gallery writes about it. Peter Dutton chose to try and politicize this. He said, we see evidence, Mr. Speaker, that the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, has also made a decision about who they're trying to back in the next federal election, Mr. Speaker. And that is open and that is obvious. They've picked this bloke, Anthony Albanese, as the candidate. Daniel Hurst writes that Morrison had used similar but vaguer language when stating those who are seeking to coerce Australia knew their candidate was the leader of the Labor Party. Anyway, it kind of goes about the kind of history in this stuff. But the reason that this is so troubling is that, the first thing is that, I think the history of connections to the CCP and the policy of the parties isn't quite, is certainly not clear cut. For instance, this government, Peter Dutton approved the sale of the Port of Darwin to China, or to people there, obviously. And we should say as well, China is separate to the Chinese Communist Party, but obviously, if you're really worried about it, But then also, Gladys Liu, the current MP, there's been, links and to CCP as well. Now, of course, again, she denies any interference by them, and I should say that as well. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that this idea that it is just New South Wales Labor, as has been later reported, this espionage attempt was by China to New South Wales Labor, is less clear cut than it's not just a one-sided thing. That the second thing is this is a government that is getting desperate. They're behind in the polls. This week they had a total failure to pass any of the things that they wished to pass. And what they are falling back on is this old hobby horse of talking about national security. And when you talk about when you make China the enemy and you try to make your opposition party into a friend of China, it's what you're doing is you're laying the groundwork for a really fucking racist campaign. China is different to the CCP, but what happens is when people focus on this stuff, the kind of thing that you're getting people angry about is you're dog whistling. I guess you can't unintentionally dog whistle, but it's just it is hoping for racist people to get behind it, to be Labor is the party of China. As this article goes through, essentially in terms of the foreign actual policy, so the things that they do, the Labor Party has pretty much just done everything that the Liberal Party has done. It just has, and maybe it shouldn't have, but they've just said, whatever you do, we're going to do no matter what. To try and do this, there is no difference between the parties and what they're actually doing. This is just clearly, as who was it who said, red scare shit. Yeah, Bandage Boy says, it's absolutely red scare shit. As Oliver says, it's op shop McCarthyism. It's just it's appealing to the worst in people because they're desperate, and it's sad. It is so sad. Thank you, Bandage Boy. That's lovely. You're Connor. I didn't realize. There you go. Hey. I forgot to do all my little promos as well. But yeah, look, I really hope we don't get into that, because at the start of the pandemic, when it was so closely linked in people's mind to Wuhan, and there was all this fucking racist stuff that was coming up. There were things do you remember when Peter Dutton was it's Chinese tourists, or it's tourists selling stuff overseas, baby formula or toilet paper, whatever. Do you remember there was a rise in anti-Asian hate, all of this bullshit that not people of color, non-white people in this country have to deal with. We just don't need an election on that is going to end up being one that is ultimately inciting race issues, even if it is about the CCP. I don't want it. Okay, that's enough. One final good one. Very important story that came out this week, just to add to the government's how they were doing. Mystery Australian MP found asleep denies soiling his pants. Former Liberal Party Senator Cory Bernardi has taken to social media to claim a mystery coalition MP was found in his office in a pool of his own urine at 3:30 on Thursday. Who was the federal MP found comatose and soiled in his office last night when Parliament was sitting? Sam Maiden, who's the author of this, tracked down the MP, who insists that they don't know how the rumours started. Oh no, they know how the rumours started, but insisted that no one lost control of their bladder. He didn't wet his pants. Oh, sorry, this is a third party. He didn't wet his pants. There was no pee that I'm aware of. He was just asleep in his office. The MP in question also confirmed rumours were complete rubbish and said he had not even been drinking. He just simply fell asleep. Well, that's again another real win for the government. And just weirdly, just out of coincidence, I also noticed this story. Here we go. Sturt MP, rising Liberal star, James Stephens, has struggled to explain how he fell asleep during a crucial vote on Prime Minister Scott Morrison's flagship religious discrimination bill as his coalition colleagues banged on his office door and urgently called security. Witnesses told the advertiser Mr. Stephens was found sleeping on his office floor and had to be roused, but insisted he was just dozing on his couch and no force was required to wake him up. The significant peril the Sturt MP posed to the federal government by falling asleep marked the start of a political headache for Mr. Morrison. While Mr. Stephens slept at 3:30, the government narrowly won their vote. So, anyway, just a coincidence. I just noticed those two stories together. I think, look, if I'm being honest with you guys, and you know, I've been thinking about this, I'd have to say this week was a bit of an L for the government. I'd be curious to hear what you think. Put it to the chat, but well, that's the thing. So Dave's in the chat says, struggle to explain that humans get sleepy if they stay up late. Shouldn't it be a really easy thing to be like, I was asleep at 3:30 in the morning? But I mean, the thing was, you also noticed in that it said witnesses said that Mr. Stephens was found asleep on the ground, whereas he said he was just asleep on the couch. So who's to say what the truth is? Okay, when we come back, we are going to talk about... We got to drop in on the Canberra cookers because a lot has happened this week. I'm just going to grab some water and we'll be back in a second. Hello, I'm back. How are we all doing? TGIF to all who celebrate. And what a TGIF it is. It is very exciting to be here with you. I hope you're all doing well. By the way, are these... is Friday afternoon at this time a good time for everyone? I'm still figuring out what times I'll do this year. You tell me what times you think are best. But at the moment, I kind of settled on Monday and Friday. But you let me know. Who knows? Maybe it'll change as we kind of get more and more normal because of the old novel coronavirus and people want to go sink a few tins on Friday afternoon. But for now, it works for me. Okay. Who have I seen? Who haven't I said hi to? Grandmaster B Funk. Hi, good to have you here. Cabbage Mode, Mug of Irony, Thought Was Deed. Is it Satius? Is that how you pronounce it? 23. Hey, Travis. Who have I missed? A few others. You're watching at the pub. It's a real pleasure to be with you at the pub, Dave. Which pub are you at in Canberra? Oh, how is Canberra, by the way? Because are you in Canberra at the moment with all the cookers? Oh. Ooh, I don't envy you. Okay, before I get back into speaking about the cookers, I should also do my little promos. Please follow my socials if you haven't already. Thank you for joining this as well. And if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can sub. Doesn't cost me anything. Doesn't cost you anything, but kicks me a few dollars. And to Regina, and I'm sure they appreciate it, and I certainly do too. And follow Regina, indeed. Okay, so I had a little yarn alert because occasionally I put pen to paper and write stuff, and I wrote about who was behind the Canberra protests. So I was just dicking around and looking at the Facebook groups that were being used to organize it, because I mean, although Telegram has emerged as a major way that all these cookers like talk to each other, learn about things, organize stuff, Facebook still remains the most popular thing. And actually you kind of notice like they really use Facebook to lead people to other places. So they'll like, you know, they'll invite all of their friends to a Facebook group, and then they'll spam like a Telegram chat, or they'll link you to like Rumble or YouTube or BitChute or something like that. And so in doing so, they get the benefit of like being on Facebook and having all the people that they can access there, but not being able to, but also not being banned, because I mean, there was a period, particularly like 2018, 19 to like 2021-ish, when all of these top names were pretty much getting kicked off. So, and I was looking through the groups after the main group, which the Canberra Convoy group, which had like, Convoy to Canberra, other way around, had like 177,000 people, and it got banned, probably because it just had heaps of bullshit. And I was looking at the remainder groups, like what was left over. And I noticed that like all the admins of these leftover groups, which had thousands of members, were like a lot of them weren't real. Like when I looked, I think it was on, would have been, I guess, Thursday, no, during Wednesday, just after. I think I found out like 5 groups, and 3 of them were definitely run by people that were accounts that did not appear to be real, appeared to be in Bangladesh or in Canada, and were just like spamming shit. The one that stood out to me, the biggest group that was left over, was this guy. His name is James Rons, and he said he lives in Ottawa. And I was looking at him, and I noticed that like his face looked kind of weird, and I remembered that. So there's this thing called this person does not exist. I don't know if you have seen it before, but it's a website that uses neural networks to artificially generate people's faces, randomly generate them. And so we'll get here. There you go. Here's someone who doesn't exist. And I mean, they're like incredibly like realistic looking. Like, I mean, these look like people. Unless you knew what to look for, you'd be like, this is real. But the thing is, these faces often have issues with them that mean that they don't, that they're like little distortions or artifacts that give you like a hint that they're not real. Now, if you look at this is actually Elise Thomas, who was great, who helped me out with this, who just point out all these little things. Like, look at his little his eyebrow there, that's not working. Down the bottom, you can kind of see like how it weirdly goes in and out of focus. On the right down the bottom, you can see weird like undulations in his neck. And then on the top left, his hair, like you've got just the changes in like the hair length, which is not, I guess, that weird by itself. It just could be like a bad haircut. But also you notice that it there's like random hairs out. It's kind of hard to see, but like there's random hairs out of nowhere as well. And then the other thing is, and I'll teach you this little trick that you can use, which is that because of the way they've been set up, all of these eyes overlap. Yeah, exactly. Thoughtless deeds. So I'll show you. I hope this works now that I've said that it works. I tried this before. So here's this bloke. We'll zoom. This, by the way, if you guys haven't used it before, is called photop.com. It is a free website that is 100% a clone of Adobe Photoshop, and it is, although you know it's a little laggy because it's a web app, it is so useful. And so we'll just take this person's face, this generated one, and we'll overlay it. I'll put the opacity down so you can see the other face, and if you make them the same size roughly, their eyes are always in the same location. See? They're always exactly in the same location. And there's a GIF, I don't have it up here right now, but they literally like overlaid like hundreds or thousands of them, and they all have their pupils in the same location. So that's another little, if you're really like geeking out, if you want to be able to tell whether one is a artificially generated face, that's a little tip you can do. Anyway, so I found out this account. Also, I couldn't find him anywhere online. I'm like, this seems kind of dodgy. And then these other ones. I mean, one was run by a guy seemingly out of India. And he looked to be real. And he was also running another, I think, Facebook group and events and stuff. But those specifically were about the Ottawa protests. And then there was also another account that was specifically, that was just like called like Freedom Truckers 22. But those last two accounts were both like constantly encouraging people to like either stream the convoy in from Ottawa, like stream them online. But if you wanted to stream them, you would have to pay money. And the Freedom Trucker account was also asking for donations. Both all these links actually were dead by the time I got to them. But anyway, so like the whole point of this is that I mean, we don't specifically know who's behind the first account. It could just be an Australian guy, could be someone in Ottawa, could be anyone who was trying to encourage the protests here. And the other two, I mean, if I had to bet on it, I would say that they are almost certainly people who are just trying to scam all these cookers who are all too happy to give money away. But why it's kind of interesting is that, like, you know, I saw some people react to this and being like, I knew these protests were fake. That's clearly not the case. Like, there are thousands of people in Canberra who are, whether we like it or not, like real people. And they have all these random complaints, some being, you know, some who legitimately are worried about, like, you know, just vaccine mandates by themselves, which, you know, like, I can understand someone reasonably being against vaccine mandates, all the way, and you know, I would say definitely the majority of them who have anti-vaxxer, all kind of conspiracy beliefs as well. They're all legit. Like, they really are real. And look, you know, they're literally coming from all across the country to do this. There's not that many of like, you know, there's such a small part of the population, but they yeah, these people do exist. But, you know, they're so dedicated to it. They are willing to drive across the country, and you know, like, good for them. But what this article, I think, like, shows, like, what the fact that, like, these people are either, you know, essentially that these people are not Australian, either supporters or protesters, shows that there are a variety of reasons that people want to create online communities to help these protests get organized. Like, they want to help them get advertised. They want to help them get, you know, coordinate them, because either, perhaps in the case of that first one, it could be just some conspiracy person from overseas who wants to be anonymous. We saw that in the case of in protests last year. The Guardian linked it, and Logically AI, which is a great like online kind of site that covers misinformation, the internet beat. They saw that a German group seeded all these protests in other countries by creating Facebook groups, events, and Telegram channels in other countries, and then invited everyone to make the protests happen there. Like, that could be this. The other ones are just trying to make money. But the result is that there are currently incentives for people who are not actually affected, you know, probably by Australia's vaccine laws, COVID health restrictions, to actually encourage people to protest and act against it. And it's not ideal. So what are they doing once they actually get there? I mean, this was a great, I mean, they've been out there processing. It's been there over a week. There are, like, heaps and heaps of them there. But apparently all the protesting is getting to them, or potentially something else is getting to them. Everyone, please be careful today. Yesterday, a member of my resistance crew collapsed and had to be taken to hospital with what appeared to be a wasp sting. But we have just heard back from his wife this morning, and apparently he was hit in the neck with a blow dart containing Moderna. The scariest part is that literally hundreds of people yesterday were complaining about the bee stings and wasp stings, yet no bees or wasps were to be seen. Just be careful out there, guys. Yeah, I mean, actually, full disclosure, I was also out there shooting Moderna boy darts. And it's time to come clean. I did it. And you know what? Now you guys are all filled with adrenochrome and heavy metals. So you'll both be poisoned and also made young. Yeah, it's, oh, hello. Welcome. Thank you for following Submissive Breedable E-Boy. And also C Bizzle TF. Good to have you here. So, the other thing that's been a part of the protest that I haven't seen get as much covering is that, you know, you're like, surely they're all there to, you know, they're all combined by their love of conspiracy, by their hatred of the government, that things would be fine. But one thing that has always held back conspiracy, you know, extreme movements, is that they can just never ever get along. Here is Ricardo Bossi, who is a full-blown conspiracy theorist who has repeatedly called for like politicians, for health ministers to be hung, so like executed. He's one of the, he's one of the main voices in Australian conspiracy movements, but he has a bit of an issue with some of the other people, some of the other leaders who've been getting a bit of shine.
Graham Hood, you had some criticisms of him presenting what he was trying to present to the Parliament. He didn't even get to talk to Scott Morrison, obviously, in the end. What were those criticisms about? And
Hoody's a great guy. Hoody's got a heart the size of Ayers Rock. I mean that. That guy is straight as the day is long. But just watching it, let me put it to you this way. If I jumped in the left-hand seat of a 747 and started flipping switches, any competent captain would tell me to get the hell out of there because I don't know what I'm doing.
Have a crack,
Hoodie's unaware that he's actually being played like a violin. Hoodie has just been nominated as the spokesperson for Reignited Democracy. Reignited Democracy is being linked to Clive Palmer and UAP. Hoodie's a good man. But that doesn't mean...
That's why the Aussie Cossack was allowed to go in and
a good man isn't sufficient. You need competence too. Okay.
Do you think your military training helps you see that? You see it in terms of a battlefield and strategic?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. Intention, purpose, method, end state, objectives. Stakeholder analysis, strengths, weaknesses, needs, wants, sensitivities.
Word association now.
Advantages, disadvantages. Select the best one. Wargaming. Mitigate against risk. Resource that course of action. Give orders, deploy. But that's not what's happening here. You'd understand. That's the way my brain works. What's happening here is I just give people options. And as I said, I don't have a leadership role here by choice. I have stepped back.
I'm actually not a leader by choice. I didn't even want to be a leader. That's why I'm absolutely not mad.
Dave the concreter from Wollongong. He is the man with the plan. And occasionally, just occasionally, he says to me, what do you reckon? And I'll say, that's pretty good. Or I say, you might need to just watch this. But I have no leadership role by choice. This is the people. They have to come to their own conclusions and say, this is what I want. And if we disagree, brilliant. That's what life is. Life isn't conformity. Life isn't following orders. That's what they want. What we want to be is free. And as I said, everyone here has the right to live their life in accordance with their value system as long as it doesn't interfere with the rights of others. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
As a sovereign being, you can't ask for any more or less than that. And if you disagree, that's great. As long as you don't get too punchy about it.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add? It's been great to talk to you, Ricardo. Thanks for your time. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
We're here till we win. We win, you lose. So I'm sorry, Slomo, but you're out of job.
Oh, Slomo got him. I mean, like, this is why, despite the fact that they are so dedicated to this, they really believe what's happening, that they can never actually be an effective political force, because they are, the people in these movements are allergic to actually doing anything with other people, consistently building towards something, potentially sacrificing, not just being individuals who are hungry for power and attention, because that's all they really want. These are all of these people just don't want to be told what to do, which sounds great. That unites them all because they're take that Scomo or whatever, but then they can't actually do anything because they can't get on for 15 minutes. Hey, Graham Hood, by the way, who is the former Qantas pilot who was made unemployed when they brought in vaccine mandates. He's now, one of the major spokespersons for all of this. This is a great fight. I had not actually seen this before. Ex-pilot Graham Hood, who calls himself the leader of the protest and is now in Parliament as a guest of Craig Kelly MP, is a former porn and sex addict who found God when he met his lover, now wife Michelle. He tells the story of his redemption. Isn't that sweet? That he could just have... That he just, he was campaigning against porn, trying to stop sex addiction, and now he's trying to stop our addiction to vaccines. What a guy. Now, I mean, look, we joke about all this stuff, but I also just want to focus on just a reminder that they're funny. I enjoy watching the videos of these guys being, wackos. And I am worried about something happening. But even if they don't, these people, a lot of them, are just assholes. So this is someone, Dr. Liz Allen, who's great, love her. Very, very lovely person. When shopping this morning, I saw a group of flag-carrying, non-mask wearing people descend on the Canberra centre. They split up and went different ways. People in the group positioned themselves in prominent places, sans masks. Others entered stores trying to provoke staff. This isn't just about, for them, being able to live their ordinary lives. Because, increasingly, vaccine mandates are really going to become, less and less prominent. We've seen New South Wales drop them. Other places will keep dropping them as we just are we've made the effort to try and get people vaccinated, but now you're on your own. This is the example of, some people live to just, troll others to try and get attention. Just a desperate to, oppose people to feel some power. And that's the thing. They're going into shops trying to provoke staff. You didn't need to do that. But you just wanted to do it. And they would be like, well, we're standing up to corporate interests or something. But the reality is, these are retail workers, who are probably paid, close to minimum wage, working a shitty job, and, a group of sunburnt, probably smelly, campers walk in draped in an Australian flag, filming themselves saying, I'm not going to wear a mask. Are you going to do something about it? And you're like, I just want to do my job, bro. I've got these t-shirts to fold. I really just, I don't care. Just making, exactly, Warface to 6669, hello, by the way, is exactly right. They want to make, this something bigger because for them it serves a purpose. Hey, look at me. I'm standing up to the man. Again, just like a minimum wage retail worker. Look how brave I am. Not really. Just really not. And here's the other thing that they're doing. Anti-vaccination protests expected to impact Canberra on Friday and Saturday. In a devastating turn of events, the farmers markets are cancelled on Saturday. Big thing in Canberra for people who've lived there. That's sad. Again, annoying. They don't have a vaccine mandate, but just because all these protesters are there and they're agitated and they're, looking for a fight, cancelling these things. That's the effect that they're having. Authorities are also preparing in case protesters converge on the AAS arena on Saturday to disrupt Superhero Day and target children lining up for their jab. These guys aren't freedom fighters. They're just assholes. They are. But as Check Raise Times 2 says, it is kind of on the way out. So they are being evicted. ACT Police has said you gotta move on soon. So eviction notices have been posted at Epic. Let's see how this plays out this Sunday after protests. So they're gonna be gone by Sunday. And by the way, for people who don't know Canberra's geography, what they did is that all these campers got moved to the Epic campgrounds, which they're in town, but they're a fair bit away from Civic and Parliament. And let me show you. Parliament to Epic. Federal Parliament to Epic Canberra. That's not doing it. Sorry, let me go to Canberra. I'll just show you guys. Okay, here we go. Here's Canberra. Here is where Parliament House is. And then you got the bridge, and then over the bridge, if you go all the way up here, I think it's just around, yeah, here we go. There's Epic. So it is a really, it's quite a distance from a lot of the other stuff. And so in doing so, they've thankfully quarantined the worst part of it. And of course people are leaving the campground, but it's getting it more out of the way, but God, I just would not really want to be there. So they are getting kicked out. But people have been reporting that there's a big protest tomorrow. Some other like big anti-vaxxers from around the country have been talking about coming down this weekend. I just saw this, just anecdotal, don't know it to be true. Canberra, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm on the road to Albury and there are cookers as far as the eye can see. They're all on a weekend trip with flags flying out of their bogan windows. Ugh. So, thoughts at prayers for you guys in Canberra. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and in a second, we'll quickly touch on... I don't have a whole lot of time left, but we got to talk about the Mad Fucking Witches and their post today. It's a confession of sorts. Maybe they've come clean, and I'll show you in just a sec. Hello. Okay. We gotta... I don't have long, but we really do have to cover this. Cam Wilson here, by the way. Thank you for joining me. It's fun. Thank you all. I'm really glad to be back streaming. Had 2 months off. Got married. But here we are. The Mad Fucking Witches app. So... if you're not acquainted with this, I'll catch up really quickly. So, Mad Fucking Witches is a group that got its name from when Peter Dutton accidentally texted Sam Maiden, who's been at News Corp, and he texted calling her a mad fucking witch. And it was this group that kind of came out of being like essentially like a feminist group, an Australian feminist group who then kind of started campaigning in Australian politics, largely against News Corp, which is really funny, by the way, because Sam Maiden works for News Corp, and they kind of like their name align themselves with her, and yet they're really against News Corp and say everyone who works there sucks. Anyway, so they kind of they're like a big like Twitter mostly sensation, and one of the things that they have done, like they've organized ad boycotts against News Corp and Murdoch generally. And then what they did was they raised money to start an app where they said it would help them combat News Corp, and they called it Murdoch Free World, also like MFW, and they raised like more than $100,000 for what has turned out to be an app that was about what it does is it lists companies who have advertised with Murdoch. Now, people, even during the fundraising process, before the development stage, were like, having a list of companies who advertise with News Corp does not take $100,000. Now, putting like the data in there would obviously take some like effort, but the idea that you would need $100,000 to program an app, which is essentially just like a database plus a Google map, is quite a lot of money. But then people pushed back and said that, if you go to a software development firm and you say, I have this much money, I want to do this, no matter the amount of money that you have, they'll figure out a way to spend it. So a really, really long time between their fundraiser and the app coming out happened. Like, people were like, where is this happening? They weren't giving details. Mad Fucking Witches, which is run by anonymous admins. I think we know at least one of them. But they were saying that they had security threats and stuff, which are very serious. And they said that because of that, they'd been forced, I think, to move to caravan parks. So, God forbid, I really hope that isn't happening to them. But they also were very, they weren't giving much information about what was happening, and people were asking questions, and the way that they deal with people asking questions, or often, being a bit snarky, probably because they haven't given any information, is that they would call them, trolls and misogynists, and they would block them. So, I don't think that really helped. So the app launched, I believe, a week or two ago when I was away. And when people used it, when they tried to use it, they really struggled. And when they tried to use it, it barely worked. And a lot of they went through the app and it was crashing, and it was just ended up being like just a web app, which is pretty people would say it's very easy to make, but again, you can spend any money in software development. And then the list that they had were like, you know, often out of date or like weird things, like it would, you know, list. I think they listed News Corp. So what they did is the app split everyone into friends and foes, and you were a foe if you'd advertised on News Corp recently, and you were a friend if you had in the past, but then you weren't anymore. And so because of that, like News Corp, like Foxtel was listed as a friend, even though they are owned by News Corp. So you'd think that'd be a foe. Anyway. So today, they released a post, because everything is posting. And here's how long it is. Good friend Leo, I don't know if he's still here, has summarized a bit of it, where they admit that the $100,000 app hasn't worked out as they would have liked. The company we chose to develop the app has performed badly on most aspects of the brief. Not only have they gone months over a firmly documented deadline, but the app isn't what they signed up for, it's clunky, and the data isn't organized correctly. We are not happy with it, but it does work to basically identify friends and foes. Sorry, I should pronounce them differently because they are capitalized. Friends and foes in your location and contact them to express what you feel about them funding hate media. And that's good news. They've now said one option is to scrap the app and refund the donation monies received. This action will probably mean that mad fucking witches will stop running campaigns at all, as we'll be required to seek other employment without those funds to pay our wages bills. And at the bottom, they put a donation. And they're still taking donations, it appears, for the app. And also, this is pretty funny. They also accused me and a bunch of other journalists of... sorry, no, they didn't. I shouldn't say they did. One of their supporters accused me and other journalists of grooming Leo, the 14-year-old journalist. Not really sure what that's about. So, the saga of the MFW app continues. I eagerly wait to see what happens. Look, I mean, some people have just said they're scammers, and I think that's actually very unlikely. I think there's a much probably better chance that you know, that they went to a software development place who just said I have this much money and I want to do this, and that firm is like, I'll take your money. Of course they would. But as anyone who's like developed an app before knows, like, if you're not specific, if you don't know what you want, if you're not like you know, if you can't really manage that stuff yourself, you're gonna end up spending a lot of money. So, but hey, $100,000 app, it's pretty questionable. But we'll see. I think, you know, if they were more open with this stuff, it would be. I think people would be more receptive if they told people what was going on, I think, a bit earlier. And full disclosure, I'm actually speaking to one of their founders, who I've texted and had initial conversations about trying to chat to her for my Murderocracy podcast, which you should listen to if you haven't already, because I think it would help if they just kind of spoke about what they'd been through, and then people, you know, with a bit more information, people could have a better understanding. And if they've done everything right, as they said they have, then like people will understand, I think. I mean, there's always going to be like haters, but like putting information out there could only help if you've done the right thing. So I really hope that they do chat to me. I think it'd be very, very interesting. I'm curious to see what happened. Okay, this has been, unfortunately I legitimately have to go again. Hey Babushka, yay! You have missed it, but nice to have you here. Thank you all, as always. It has been a pleasure. It's really fun. So I'll be back on Monday night. I've still got as you can see, there's a heap of stuff we haven't covered. I'm sorry I've been going so in depth, but it's been fun. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Cabbage Mode. Thank you, Moz. Thank you, Thoughtless D. Thank you, Upright Squire. Check raise ×2. Mug of Irony, thank you all the way from Canada. Love it. Regina, my faithful lieutenant. They're great. Crispy Chips. Dave. Who have I missed? Wallfacer 6669. Great to have them. Oliver. Bandage Boy. There's other people as well. It's been great. Thank you all. Oh, Ashley. thank you so much for joining as well. Who have I missed? Pyro Grunt, thank you all. Yeah, why don't we raid Disco Dead Pigeon? Let me see if I can do that. Disco, yeah, boom, here we go. We're in. Let's check out these cookers from the source. Thank you all. It's great. And I will see you all Monday night. I'm sure there'll be plenty more antics between now and then. Goodbye.